Morning, everyone. I'll call this meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. First of all, I want to welcome all our visitors from the Texas Realtor Conference going on over at the Hyatt. I thank you for attending today. All commission meetings, you will get CE hours. If the meeting's 2 hours, you'll get 2 hours. If it's 4, you get 4. So welcome. While we start, I'd like to ask a couple Texas Realtor volunteers to say the pledge. I'll start with Bob Christian from HAR. He will do the U.S. pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to now ask Don Hall to do the Texas pledge from Greenville.
I pledge allegiance to the Texas flag, to Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, some opening remarks. Again, welcome from the Texas Realtors. We have a pretty light agenda today. We have a proposed rule. We have some reports. I will do my best as chairman to try to eliminate ESAC and some different initials and try to give y'all a little bit of information on what they stand for. I think sometimes we get up here and we just think everybody knows what we're talking about. So I'll try to slow down some of the things we do. That way maybe you'll pick it up. Our next meeting is in May. You know this, last year we made some changes that all the commission meetings are not in Austin. We think we should get out, and the meeting in May will be in the Dallas area. So if you're from the DFW area, watch for us in May. It'll be on the website. We're really excited about getting out. All right, I'm going to step in front. We've got some people departing, some public servants departing some of our advisory committees, and I'd like to recognize them, so I'm going to step out front real quick. First of all, we have an Education Standards Advisory Committee. This is what we call ESAC. This is a group of people made up of educators, educator providers that look at the education, what we need to do, what we need to change, stuff like that. We have a couple people leaving. Rick Albers. He is not here. Y'all, he's been at TREC. You know, Rick has always been an instrumental player in education. I'm just going to start calling this guy the water man, okay? Charles Porter. If you have any questions about water, stuff that you ask, or you're one of the 254 counties, he is the man to call. And, you know, you've been involved with everything. We thank you so much for what you do for our agency and for Texas in general. Thank you. I'm not sure who this next one is. Candy Cook. Again, I mean, involved in the ESAC, but also involved with everybody teaching CE and just really spreading the word of professionalism education. And we thank you for your service. Next, we used to have a thing called Broker Responsibility Working Group. It was put together probably 15, 16 years ago. Last year, this commission decided to make it a formal advisory committee. It's the Broker Responsibility Advisory Committee, also known as BRAC, also known as BRAC. We haven't really landed a name. Now, we are congratulating some people for their service from Broker Responsibility Working Group, but they're back on BRAC, okay? And the first one is Bob Baker, that is not here. We saw him earlier. He is in the Texas Realtor Executive Session. The next is Brian Sales. Next is Ty Williams. He is leading broker responsibility. He is now the chairman of Broker Responsibility Advisory Committee, correct? All right, thank you. All righty. Yasmin Pettis is not here, and Soccer Chapman Thomas is not here. So if y'all know them, send them a text, give them a howdy, and thank them for the service to our agency. All right? Agenda item 5. Election of vice chair. I will call for nominations.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate, if he's willing to accept, Mr. Mark Woodruff.
I have a motion for Mark Woodruff. Second. All right, a second. Yeah, we don't need a second, but we have a second. Any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll declare the position filled by Commissioner Woodruff. I will now ask for a nomination for secretary.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Pena, if he's willing.
I have a nomination for Commissioner Pena. Anybody else, any other nominations? Hearing none, position is filled. For those that don't know, the executive committee is made up of the chairman, the vice chairman, and the secretary. 4 years ago, Commissioner Hartgraves, it was 4 years ago where we made the change that one of the three will be a public member, and if all three are broker members, one public member will sit in an executive. We just feel that since it's a 6-3, 6 brokers, 3 public members, there should always be a public member with a voice at the executive level. And Commissioner Pena will be the public member. Okay. Now, the next thing we will do, I will appoint liaisons to the different committees and advisory groups and stuff like that. And I will start with enforcement. I will have appoint Jason Hargraves to remain chair, Renee Harvey Lowe, and Commissioner Ben Pena on enforcement. Budget committee, Mark Woodruff is chair, Stuart Bernstein is on, and then Barbara Russell on budget. Audit committee will be Commissioner Pena and Commissioner Chance Brown. Liaison to the Inspector Committee will be Commissioner Leslie Lerner, myself. Commission Liaison to Education Standards Advisory Committee will be Commissioner Russell. Commission Liaison to Broker Responsibility Advisory Group will be Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Lerner. Commission Liaison to the Texas Real Estate Broker Lawyer Committee will be Commissioner Hartgraves, Commissioner Harvey Lowe, and myself. And ex officio to the Texas A&M University Real Estate Research Center will be Commissioner Russell. And those are the appointments. And the liaison they're there not to necessarily direct the advisory group. That's exactly what they're not supposed to do. They're there to help be the conduit and maybe let them know what the commission's thinking, and just kind of a conduit between them and the commission. That way we know if they bring something forward, where it came from, some background on it. Most of them are attended by Zoom by the commissioners, but y'all, when the commissioners step up and do that, that is just added time that they're volunteering. And so I think it's very important, not only to the advisory committees and the other task forces and committees, but also to this commission in general. Okay, we will now go to agenda item number 8. We will start with committee reports. The very first one will be Education Standards Advisory Committee. Bill Stedham will give that report. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. ESAC held its first meeting of the new year on January 8th. The committee welcomed new members Amanda Nichols, Thomas Carl Leatherman, and Cynthia Bass and Rita Bevins. Elections were held, resulting in myself serving as chair, Brian Underwood as vice chair, and Mike Crawley as secretary for 2024. In a previous meeting, we had asked agency staff to explore the possibility of combining Principles 1 and 2 courses into a single 60-hour course and requiring principals as a prerequisite to other qualifying courses. After committee discussion and consideration of public comment, the committee decided against recommending the combination of Principles 1 and 2, but to move forward with the recommendation to require Principles 1 and 2 as prerequisites to be taken before the remaining qualifying courses. The idea behind the recommendation is to establish a base foundation of knowledge for students before they enter into more complex subject matter to ensure the students will be better prepared for those courses. The recommendation will be before you later today. As part of the ongoing qualifying course review, ESAC reviewed the Law of Agency course and recommended some revisions to the course content outline. Staff will present a draft of revisions to the committee at the next regularly scheduled meeting. ESAC will also continue to discuss the current outline for Principles 1 and 2. The next ESAC meeting is scheduled for April 1st.
Any questions? Thank you for your report. Next up will be the Broker Responsibility Advisory Committee. Chair Ty Williams will give that report. Good morning again.
Good morning. Good morning again. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'd like to first start by saying thank you from the bottom of our heart from all of the members from the previous Broker Responsibility Working Group. I think we got a lot of things done and just wanted to say thank you very much for allowing us to serve and improve the industry. I'd also like to say thank you from the new group, Broker Responsibility Advisory Committee, for allowing us to serve and improve the industry as well and continue our hard work there. The Broker Responsibility Advisory Committee met on January 17th. The committee elected several folks, including myself as chair, Brian Sells as vice chair, and Marion Napoleon as secretary. General Counsel Vanessa Burgess welcomed everyone and went through several different things, including training us on the committee and how things worked, and we were grateful for that. We also went around the room to hear why members wanted to be involved and serve in the committee, and so that was interesting to hear as well. The committee reviewed topics that Broker Responsibility had gone over in the past and discussed agenda items that might be possibly added to future agendas over the course of the year. One of the first agenda items that we spoke about was reviewing education and experience requirements for brokers, defining broker associates, and discussing inactive licenses. We discussed future meeting dates, and we set the meeting date for the future meeting for Tuesday, April 23rd. That's what we have so far. Any questions? Anyone?
Any questions? Thank you for your report.
Thank you so much.
Next up will be the Texas Real Estate Inspector Committee, Chairman Lee Warren.
Good morning. The Inspector Committee met on January 16th via teleconference. We wanted to start an in-person meeting, but the late governor's directive, due to the inclement weather and trying to save energy, prevented that, so we went ahead and met via teleconference. First meeting of the year, we have a number of new members. This is a unique situation for us because we actually had 5 basically brand new members of the 9-member committee that have started, so it certainly is going to kind of change the dynamic of the committee, which I think is a good thing. Some little fresh perspective. Rhonda Lynn Riley filled in the remaining term of a member that resigned last year. And then we had Stephanie Cochran and Randy Baer, who are 2 new inspector members. 2 new public members are Ed Muth and Teresa Benavides. So that should certainly make things interesting moving forward. We did election of officers, just as all committees do. I was elected to serve as chair once again. Mike Morgan will be the vice chair, and Brian Carroll will be the secretary for 2024. We have 2 subcommittees within the inspector committee, standards of practice and education. So the education committee will be looking, standards of practice we'll be looking at a new review of the standards. We do this from time to time. We review the entire group of standards of practice. Sometimes it results in some non-substantive changes, just some little wordsmithing. Sometimes it's a whole revamp and a new report form and all this other stuff. We don't know what that's going to look like yet. Not trying to direct that committee to what they can or can't do. Just it's a whole look, and it'll be a kind of long, tedious process. We'll see how that all plays out. On the other side, we'll be looking at the possibility of recommending legislative change or rule change, which will require legislative change to possibly get rid of one of the license types. We currently have 3 license types. We've been looking, we discussed this a little bit last year, but I think we're going to dive a little more into this next time to possibly get rid of the real estate inspector license type and just keep the apprentice and the professional inspector. So we'll see how that all plays out. But again, long process. We got a long time to wait for that. Vanessa Burgess provided an advisory committee training that's done every couple years to ensure that new members have a good idea about how the process works. And our next meeting will be on April 15th. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Any questions? All right, thank you. You know, it's kind of cool being chairman. You can upstage the general counsel, and I'm about to do that. Mr. Rick Albers is here. I'd like to recognize him as a departing member for Education Standard Advisory Committee. Rick, if you'll come up. Rick not only helps with education, but also is a brilliant legal mind with broker lawyer and some form changes and stuff like that. Again, a volunteer that gives his time to this agency and the people of Texas. So Rick, thank you so much for what all you do. And I need to add, this is not goodbye. These people will still be engaged with not only the association, but this agency and staff to keep us in line. Okay, agenda item number 11, General Counsel Vanessa Burgess. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm here today to give the report from the Broker Lawyer Committee. And I'll walk through a couple of things that they did, and I'll put some focus on the form that is currently before you for adoption later today. And I'm doing so. I realize I am not looking at the people that I'm going to give a longer explanation of the form to, but it's everyone here because this is such a neat opportunity to walk through what Broker Lawyer Committee does and the work, and we know that there's a lot of interest in the form that's up for adoption. So I'll cover a little bit, and Abby will cover some more later when she presents it. So at its January meeting, the Broker Lawyer Committee, they met on a couple of things. They went through standard comments. They created some new working groups to get together to walk through some of the potential form changes. I think we know that form changes are on the horizon. They'll still need to go through the process of being presented to the full commission for your approval for proposal, public comment, and adoption. But we can tell we are getting closer to that step. But at the January meeting, the Broker Lawyer Committee really spent most of its time reviewing public comment received regarding the new draft form, Notice to Purchaser of Special Taxing or Assessment District. It's a long name. So the committee reviewed the public comments received on the draft. They also noted, though, there were a lot of comments asking for language changes. And because the language in the form that relates to the disclosure is really, it's outlined in statute, there's not a lot of room for movement there, but there was some room for movement in the introduction paragraph. So that is where some of the public comments were addressed. Some of the changes really couldn't be changed because that language is truly in statute with quotation marks, right? So there's not much that can be done. But I will walk through some of those clarifying edits that were made as a result of public comment in the introduction of that form, which is just a paragraph right at the top. So why is the Broker Lawyer Committee making a recommendation to adopt this form? Well, under Texas law, if a seller's property is located in a water district like a MUD, the seller must provide a notice that includes certain specific information to the buyer prior to the execution of the contract. As I just mentioned, the language of that notice is provided word for word by statutes. So What does that mean? It means water districts are required to make the information on this form available to the public. Many are required to post this information on their website. However, if the district has not made this notice available, which we know some water districts have not made this information available, and they are not within our jurisdiction to regulate, the Broker Lawyer Committee recommended that this form be made available as a backup so that a seller can obtain the information from the district and, for example, call them, and then they can use that information to complete the form. So, for example, if the seller lives in a water district, let's say it's the Blue Elephant Water District, they're going to call over there, they're going to obtain that information from Blue Elephant, fill out that form and provide the disclosure. And what's important there is that disclosure impacts the contract, right? So even though we know the water districts are not necessarily all in compliance, this form is intended to be a bridge, hopefully until they are all in compliance with posting that notice. But just wanted to explain the reasoning behind this form and why it has the language that it does. Some of the questions that came up, and I talked earlier about language that was put into the introduction, is one question we got, is this form supposed to be used with PIDs, public improvement districts? And the answer to that is no. And so what Broker Lawyer Committee did, because there was enough confusion on that, was they put a notice in the introduction that says this form is not to be used with PIDs. So you'll see that changed before you today. It's a non-substantive change. It's an area that we can control in that introduction. Another question that we've been getting, which I think is definitely relevant to those that are sitting out in the audience, is are license holders supposed to complete this form? And I can see the chair shaking his head. That's correct, they are not. So this is a seller's disclosure form. So it is a seller's responsibility to complete the form and provide the notice, provide the form to the buyer, much like the seller's disclosure notice. And if the seller has questions on how to complete this form, the seller should contact the district. And so the other question we had, this is where there was some confusion, and I can understand why, because it seems like there are two forms at times, right? If the MUD has posted the notice on the website, is it intended that the TREC form be used or the water district's form? And so the answer to that is no. If available, the seller should use the district's form instead of the commission's form. And the committee actually added that statement as well to the information at the top of the form, really with the hope of ensuring that that introduction answers some of the confusion and the questions about it. The other side to that is that TREC is putting out communications explaining how this form is to be used, that it's that bridge. I'm trying to do it right here and really clear up some of the confusion around that form. But do note, it's a seller's disclosure. It implicates the contract forms, and the Broker Lawyer Committee wanted to make sure there was something available for sellers to use.
Any questions? And we will get back to that agenda item 18 when we actually ask for adoption, and we'll probably have some questions at that time. Agenda item number 12, report by the Executive Committee. The Executive Committee met twice, December 18th and January 18th. The notes are in the handout material. On page 9, on the December the 18th, we met at 1 o'clock. We talked about funding for the research center, had passed legislatively. Hold times for November were 57 seconds. Which if you were here several years ago, that's pretty cool. We also are going to have an ongoing discussion on broker secession. We've encountered that. We know it's an issue that if something happens and the broker passes away, that all their listings are theoretically gone and their licensees are inactive, and there's been a general practice that there's some time allowed for that to happen, but general practice is not always the best. So that's one of the bigger things we're going to tackle at a workshop later this afternoon. We're going to talk about that and try to get it to where when a broker passes, their agents, their clients, their fiduciaries are not in jeopardy. And so I think it's something long overdue. So we kind of talked about that at executive and brought it out. On January the 18th, we talked about the launch on the LLC registration for compensation only, and Chelsea has some numbers on that a little bit later. Also talked about the meeting in May. This is kind of interesting. As of the 18th of January, we had 10,000 calls into the call center. The entire month of December, we had 12,000. So just less than, 3 weeks into the month, we had already surpassed what we had the month before, and the whole time was still under 2 minutes. So congratulations. You know how I feel about the job you do, and so awesome job on that. Next, we will have some reports from agency operations, initiatives, and divisions. And first up is our Executive Director, Chelsea Buckholtz. Good morning again.
Good morning. It's really exciting to see a room full of license holders. Welcome. And thank you for being here, for taking the time. If you have any questions about what we're doing here, reach out, because we want you to be here so that you can learn kind of how this work is done. So if it's unclear, please reach out and let us explain things, because it's, we need to work together. And a lot of what agents and brokers do, I don't understand. And it makes sense for some of what we do here as state agency employees for it not to be all that clear as well. But the chair and I have just returned from a quick talk at Texas Realtors this morning with their executive board to provide them with a little bit of an update on TREC. We told them about all sorts of things. We were able to discuss the legislative implementation for the business entity registration. That began January 1st, and as of the end of January, we received about 556 applications, and we issued about half of that, 245, actual registrations. The rest are still in process. This is a very document-heavy process. There's a lot of review that goes into each one of these registrations, and I think many people who submit documents, we need to clarify some of what they've submitted and ask for some additional things. So that's where we are in the process. We also have a lot of information on our website that is helpful to anyone interested in that. This morning, we were also able to talk a little bit about our new practice of how we're handling late renewals. So a rule was passed in October that allows for a different, that made some changes to the look back of a renewal. If you'll recall, this was in order to be in line with, I'm about to cite a statute for any license holder who cares, but Occupations Code 1101.367. So in order to, when a license holder goes inactive, even if they go inactive for an hour, when they return to active, we must, according to the statute, look back 2 years to see if they have all of their CE. And if they don't, then they need to complete that CE before returning to active. Now that CE will be used for their next renewal, but that is in order to comply with 1101.367. We have a lot of information. Well, we have an article on our website that was just published last week to account for that. We have gotten a lot of calls on this and recognize that this change in October came with consequences. Before, when you looked back at a license, you could go longer than 2 years without CE. And that wasn't aligned with the statute. Now, that will be for future facing. But that means that if someone, I'm gonna use a Valentine's term, breaks up with their broker, they need to have that new relationships established first so that there's no inactive time period. I've decided that works in real estate, but probably not with love. But we'll go with that. This morning, we also mentioned our new contract form, which of course Vanessa went into great detail on, so I'll skip over that. And we celebrated the new Broker Responsibility Advisory Committee. I'm going with BRAC instead of BRAC. I don't even know why, but one of the things, and I mentioned that one of the things that BRAC will be doing this year is to toggle the education requirements to become a broker now that requirement is in rule rather than statute. That was a statutory change last session. Tomorrow, the chair and I will return for a few additional updates to the board of directors at Texas Realtors. That will be our last event with this winter conference. You know, having the occasion to speak to our license holders is always a good thing. It's an honor and to just be with them and to learn from all of our license holders. And this winter meeting provides really our largest opportunity each year to do just that. So I'm grateful for the health of our relationship with Texas Realtors so that we can participate in this conference. Also at the winter meeting, the CEO of Texas Realtors announced his retirement, Travis Kessler. He intends to retire in about a year, I think in 2025. So I just want to mention, and I feel like we have a whole year of just complimenting his exceptional work at Texas Realtors, but I really admire his poise and diplomacy in that job and what a strong leader he is and has been for Texas Realtors. And personally, I just appreciate the relationship we have. I am shifting gears to a few operational updates and want to introduce to you a new director. He's not new to our agency, but he's new in the director position. We have a new director of human resources, Darren Gertz. This is Darren. He's been with our agency a few years now, but stepped into that director role, director of HR, in January. So I'm excited to have him on board. Another operational update is that we continue our implementation of the RAMP project through our vendor Acela. This is our back-end database project that takes about 18 months to implement. It is slow going and somewhat painful. I'll be honest, it's a lot of work, and our employees are doing such a good job at taking this project seriously and doing the front-end work on it. It does seem to be a little bit delayed, but I still hope and expect for a fall implementation. So more to come on that. One more operational update that I wanted to mention, I've provided you with a few updates on this just in my written updates, my weekly updates, but we continue to work with the Texas Facilities Commission regarding a potential move to leased space that is a current hole in the ground at 1500 Lavaca. They're just beginning construction on that project with an expected completion date around fiscal year 2028. So that would mean like calendar September of 2027. We expect this space to reflect and support our hybrid work environment. And we have signed nothing. We continue to kind of weigh our options, but it is looking very promising for the way in which we can design that space and have input to reflect how we work. And it will not have a significant budgetary impact. So we see that as a good thing, and I will keep you absolutely updated on all of that. Later in the agenda item 20, you will address my performance, which is always a really exciting thing to do with a full audience. I never know how best to publicly respond to this process, and so I wanted to just take a moment here to say thank you. I have received your feedback that you provided to me in written form, and I know this process is not complete at all. But based on that written feedback, I wanted to just thank you for your continued confidence in me. There's always more to do for self-improvement, for my own professional growth, and also as a leader of the agency. I'm humbled by your encouragement and your positive feedback, and I'm also empowered by just your identification of areas of improvement. I plan to spend this year, my 5th as executive director, focusing on expanding my knowledge in the industry, always, and having time with our license holders, and leading our agency's initiatives and projects to completion. I'm grateful for each of you and the ways in which we each partner for TREC's success. One final note, and this is for each of you. Do you have your pens ready? Between now and the next meeting, our personal financial statements are due at the end of April. Mark your calendar and be mindful of that deadline, because the penalties for noncompliance are quite stiff. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? My wife will be totally astonished, but my personal financial statement is filed with the Ethics Commission.
Well done.
Done.
Done. It's just February.
Okay, next up will be Robert Hood, Director of Customer Relations Division. If you want to make a public comment under the agenda item 14, there are sign-up sheets in the back. Fill one out. They'll run it up here, and I'll certainly call on you when we get to that agenda item. Good morning, Mr. Hood, Director of Customer Relations Division. Mr. 57-second hold time in December. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Robert Hood, Director of the Customer Relations Division. The Customer Relations Division is the agency's centralized customer service division. The division team members receive and respond to general communications from Texas consumers, license holders, and applicants, including all telephone, email, and in-person inquiries. I am pleased to present to you on the status of the division. On page 15 in your meeting materials, this will be the start of our December 2023 report. This past December, the contact center was able to maintain our hold time target of below 2 minutes. The overall hold time for the month of December was 1 minute and 40 seconds. The call volume for December was a little over 12,000 calls, which was similar to the previous month of November. 21 staff members were answering phone calls and processing emails in December. For the month of December, we were successful in maintaining a hold time of less than 2 minutes for 16 out of the 19 business days in the month. You will see on December 27th, our line graph goes completely off scale because our hold time for that day was 10 minutes and 50 seconds, and that was the day after Christmas. The day we returned back to work after the Christmas holiday. We were presented with almost 3,000 calls the last few days of December. Despite those last few days of the month, we were still able to maintain that 1 minute and 40-second hold time. The December comparison of calls between TREC and the board is consistent. About 90% of our workload was TREC related. Page 16 in your meeting materials. This is our 13-month overview of the calls presented to the contact center and the hold times for those respective months. Over the past 13 months, the contact center has been consistently below our 2-minute target, with our shortest hold time of 39 seconds in October of 2023 and our longest hold time of 2 minutes and 27 seconds in January of 2023. The number of calls presented over these months ranges from as little as 12,000 calls to as many as 18,000 calls. And typically, January is our busiest month of the year. This past January, we were presented with over 18,000 calls, but able to maintain a 1 minute and 32-second hold time. Next, on page 17, you will find the number of emails the contact center handled. This past December, 2,321 emails were processed, all within 1 business day of receiving them. Page 18. This is our fiscal year comparison of the monthly average number of calls we presented each fiscal year with the average hold time. 4 months of data is represented in FY 2024, with an average of 14,000 calls per month and an average hold time of 1 minute. This will conclude the reports for the Customer Relations Division. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? I've got one. In January, you had the 10,000 calls the first 18 days. Is there any way to distinguish how many of those were on the new business entity registration?
No, we don't know exactly how many were from business entity.
Okay. And while we have some visitors here, what are the hours for the call center?
We're open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Okay. So most realtors aren't up at 7 a.m., so if they wanted to call then, and that's 6 a.m. in El Paso, there's probably a really good chance you could get someone quickly, correct?
That is correct, yes. Early in the morning is probably the best time to call us. During lunchtime, you may have a little bit of a hold time.
Good job, especially on the email within 24 hours. And that is not the automatic email. We received your email. That is an actual answer.
Actual response, yes.
Within 24 hours. All right. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Jennifer Wheeler, Director of Education and Examination Services. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Kestner and Commissioners. And it's nice to see so many familiar faces in the audience today. I always love the February meeting that coincides with the TR Winter Conference. For the benefit of everyone, again, Jennifer Wheeler, I'm the Director of Education and Examinations, and I'll start by giving you all just a bit of an overview of our division. The Education and Exams Division reviews applications for qualifying and continuing education course providers and the courses themselves to ensure statutory and agency standards are met. Division team members support the agency mission to protect consumers of real estate services in Texas by ensuring content for qualifying and continuing education courses is both accurate, relevant, and that the courses satisfy requirements for adult learning, design, and delivery methodologies. As you know, all sales agents, broker, and inspector applicants are required to pass a licensing exam. The Education Division works in conjunction with Pearson VUE, the agency's currently contracted vendor, to ensure successful administration of the licensing exam. Members of the education team also provide research and support to the Education Standards Advisory Committee, the Inspector Education Committee, and the Broker Responsibility Advisory Committee. We also work closely with General Counsels Vanessa Burgess and Abby Lee, as well as Summer and Sierra in Communications to develop the non-elective course content and supporting materials. The newest versions of the Legal Update 1 and 2 courses became effective on January 1st of this year, and work has already begun to revamp the Broker Responsibility course for 2025. We continue to add engagement and innovations to these courses and always welcome your feedback. With that, I'll move on to reports. The education reports before you today begin on page 19 of your meeting materials. They represent data through December of 2023. The first page of the report reflects qualifying provider and course applications received and approved during this time frame, while the second page of the education report reflects the same information for continuing education courses and providers. Turning to page 21 of your meeting materials, you'll find a 13-month comparison of all applications approved. You'll note that what seems to be an anomaly in March of 2023, but in fact, that is a month where we had somewhat of a backlog of applications. We hosted an all-hands-on-deck work day to try to manage those applications. At the time, we were in the process of training two new team members. We received kind assistance from both the licensing and the TLCB divisions, which allowed us to approve so many applications in a single month. We've been monitoring trends in increased applications in general and have been successful in managing those influxes. Outside of the anomaly that's not really an anomaly, this past December reflects our highest volume of applications approved over the course of the last 13 months. This is reflective of the new legal update courses and a typical increase in volume in these applications received every other year to coincide with providers seeking to renew these courses. In other words, they operate on a 2-year cycle. Page 22 of your materials, you'll see a 5-year look back of all applications separated by type with the fiscal year to date totals in the right-hand column of each chart. Page 23 reflects a 5-year look back of all applications combined with fiscal year to date data in the right-hand column again. And the last page of the education report reflects a 13-month look back at the volume of phone calls and emails handled within our division. Well, this concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I've got one on page, Initial providers, those seem to be going up. Or is that the trend, or has it always been like that? I've just never noticed it.
Are you on the qualifying or the?
On the applications received, initial provider, under current education provider, and course application, page 20.
When you scroll to
Has that always been?
20.
Those are the initial providers, correct? Initial applications for
Those
new
are-
providers?
Yes, those are new providers. So we're seeing an increase on both the qualifying education provider side, but even more significantly on the continuing education provider side.
And I love to see the CE applications for new courses way up there around 3,000, so that's awesome.
Yes, it's
All
pretty
right, any
great.
other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next up, Denise Sample, Director of Licensing. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Kestner and Commissioners, and our full audience. I wanted to get a look because I can't see from my seat. So before I get into our regular reports, I do want to, just for the benefit of everyone in the room, give a brief introduction on the licensing division and what it is that we do. Our role is to safeguard the public interest and protect consumers of real estate services, and we do that by ensuring that license holders meet minimum education, experience, or examination license application requirements before we issue a license or registration. So this includes sales agents, brokers, both individual and business entities, inspectors, and easement or right-of-way registrants. It also, as of January 1, includes processing applications for business entity registrations. And so as Executive Director Buckholtz touched on earlier, or reported on earlier, we did anticipate a lot of interest in those business entity registrations, and we received quite a high number of them. And I believe it was 556 applications for the month of January. And with that influx of applications, we were able to provide a response, and in most cases, an approval within 5 business days of receiving the documents. It has been a bit of a learning experience in reviewing the different documents. We learned about different ownership structures of businesses and saw all kinds of questions that had not really been contemplated prior to implementation. So I do want to thank members of, General Counsel team who were fielding questions from licensing team. We had a lot of help from IT in getting, all the testing completed and getting that transaction fully online and working for us, and the communications team as well for getting out some helpful articles and information as the questions were coming in from the public. It was a group effort. So you'll note I don't have information on the business entity registrations because my regular reports are through December, but going forward, metrics on the new registration will be included. So we start on page 25 of your materials with the first regular reports. And that first report is license applications received. The top left corner has a year-over-year comparison. We're in the middle of the current fiscal year, so that information is not included there. But the year-to-date information for broker and sales agents are on the top right. Bottom left is inspector applications received. And the bottom right is easement and right-of-way registrants. The next report is the license renewal activity. One item I want to point out on these reports, the area of focus is the renewal rate. So as we see an increase in license holder counts, we will see an increase in the total number, the raw volume of renewal applications, but that renewal rate is what drives a lot of the agency's projections. And those are consistent across most license types, and we're even seeing a slight increase, in particular with the brokers. The next page is license holder counts. And this is a 13-month comparison, so from December of 22 through December of 2023. And so that big number there in bold, we ended December of 23 with over 238,000 license holders. The next page is a graphical presentation broken down by license type. And the last report is the license application processing time. we have a goal, this is a 13-month comparison, we have a goal of 14 days. And this is the time that it takes the licensing team to respond to documents received on an application. It excludes any time that it takes the applicant to pass the exam or clear the background check. And you'll see we're within we're under 14 days on all the application types. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? 3.27 days to activate a sales agent. That's incredible. Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Michael Malloy, Director of Enforcement. Morning, sir.
Good morning, Mary Chair Kestner, Commissioners. Mike Malloy, Director of Enforcement. In light of our audience, full audience, which is great, I just want to speak briefly about the Enforcement Division. Enforcement Division investigates and enforces all related consumer complaints against all the licenses that we regulate. In addition to that, we review people's background histories for new applications and individuals that have a license that may have background issues while being licensed. Last fiscal year, we opened 6,300 complaints and closed 6,600 complaints, approximately. Turning to my first report, it's on page 30. It's a case status report. Comparing to the year-to-date, the same time as last year, sales and broker complaints are up 10%. Additionally, the division has closed 6% more complaints than we have opened. And you probably noticed a slight decline in November and December. It's because of the holidays. The case openings roared back, and we opened 551 cases just this past January. Moving to my case aging report, on the next page, 99% of complaints are within 1 year or less. Since May of 2023, at least 90%, we've been able to maintain a 90% range for the 0 to 6 months. That's the first time in my records that we've been able to do that. So I'm proud of my team to be able to maintain that. And I appreciate the commission providing me the resources in order for us to tackle case aging in general. The 5 cases reflected on that report at the end, those have either been closed by the date of this meeting or they're pending a hearing or a PFD to be heard in front of the commission. Additionally, for the 6 to 12 month range, that's down 10% from last fiscal year at the same time. Turning to the last report I have on page 32 and 33, there's no notable changes in the subject matter category, and the top 3 categories are sales other, licensure issues, and breach of fiduciary category. That concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions? I heard one number that of the 232,000 salespersons, brokers, active business entities, less than 1% have had a complaint against them.
Statistically, yes, sir.
And the majority of complaints are in like year 7 of having a license.
What we've done, the research that I've done, typically if someone's going to get a complaint filed against them, it's not in the first few years, it's around year 7. And that's for individuals that are brokers and sales agents.
I found that interesting. Like, you think you know what you're doing and then you don't know what you're doing. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting number, 7 years. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Watson, Director of IT, the driver of RAMP. We can't change the name. It's got to be RAMP. It just has to be.
It does. In respect of my predecessor. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Tom Watson, Director of Information Technology. The Information Technology team is responsible for all hardware and software technologies implemented throughout the agency. We work closely in the implementation of different technologies with each of the division directors and their teams to provide solutions which support their efficiencies and their directives. So We get involved in quite a few of the projects throughout the agency. On page 34, the top half of the report is a representation of online web activity showing the various utilization of the website, the services on the website, and it is fairly consistent from month to month, year to year. So we are seeing pretty good utilization of that particular service. On the bottom half of the report is representation of our online transactions. So the utilization of submitting an application, an initial application, and payment through our online services, as well as submission of renewals and payment through online services. I would like to point out that the salesperson renewal is really showing some strong results at over 98%, and that number appears to be fairly consistent over the last few months. So real happy with those particular numbers and that participation from that group of people. On page 35, you'll see a 13-month trending view of those exact same numbers. So the top half of the page shows the initial applications and utilization of that particular service. It's fairly consistent, a few bumps here and there, but currently showing a slight trend upward and strong utilization. The bottom half you can see is stability over the last number of months and predictability. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much. Next up, Renata Williams, Chief Financial Officer.
Good morning, Chair Kestner and Commissioners. Renata Williams, Chief Financial Officer, Director of Financial Services Division. Within the Financial Services Division, we are responsible for accounting for all revenue, expenditures, providing investment recommendations, paying of the invoices, travel, agency procurement and contracting, asset management, and facilities management. Today, I will be presenting the December 2023 monthly financial report. Starting on page 36 is the quarterly revenue analysis. We have collected $4.1 million, which is 29.02% of our total revenue projections. We are slightly below our target of 33.3% of revenue by the end of December. Although we are below our target, it is not a cause for concern at this time because historically we realize a slower revenue collection in the fall and winter months, and then we see an increase in that revenue in the spring and summer months. On page 37 is the quarterly expenditure analysis. We have spent $5.6 million, which is 30.81% of our total expenditures. Again, we are slightly below our target of 33.3% of projected expenditures. Next, on page 38, is a year-over-year comparison, which shows our revenue and expenditures in the current year and what those amounts were for FY 2023. We should expect to see higher expenditures throughout the entirety of fiscal year 2024 as we continue with our implementation of RAMP. Lastly, we go into our investment holdings reports. These depict our ending balances in each of our portfolios, which is comprised of our cash, our repo agreements, and our U.S. Treasury notes. In the TREC operating account 3055, our ending balance was $19.1 million. We had $8.9 in operating reserves, which left us with $10.2 million available for operations. On page 40, in the real estate recovery account 3058, we had $3.9 million as our ending balance, $288,952 as reserved for potential payments within the next 90 days, which left $3.6 million as the balance. Since our ending balance was over $3.5 million as of December 31st, 2023, we were required to transfer the excess funding to the comptroller to be credited to the state's general revenue. The total amount over our threshold was $434,977.92. This transfer was completed on January 12th, 2024. Finally, on page 41 is account 3059, which is the Real Estate Inspection Recovery Fund. Our ending balance on December 31st, 2023 was $442,381.91, and there were no potential payments due within the next 90 days. As a result of House Bill 1363, Occupations Code, Chapter 1102, Subchapter H, which is the Inspector Recovery Fund, is repealed. As a part of that bill, we were directed to transfer not less than $200,000 by December 31st, 2023, to be credited towards any amounts that the agency owes to the State General Revenue Fund. This transfer was completed on December the 21st, 2023, which was credited towards our annual $750,000 payment that we're required to remit as a condition of being an SDSI agency. Any funding remaining in the account will continue to remain in the account in accordance with the provisions of House Bill 1363 until it can be fully liquidated after September 30th, 2028. This concludes the Financial Services Division report. Are there any questions?
Any questions? You made that statement on the recovery fund. We will actually talk about the recovery fund a little bit later on agenda item number, I think it's 17. So thank you very much.
Sir.
Next up, Summer Mandel, Government and Strategic Communications Director. And I want to thank you. We had 2 different speaking engagements at Texas Realtors, and you had us totally prepared. So thank you for giving us our talking points and our bumpers so we didn't get out of line. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for staying in line. It's very important. So, good morning, Commissioners. Chair Kesner. I don't have my paper today. I was practicing my script with my 10-month-old. She loved it, but I left it at home, so I have to use this. So, pardon my computer. So I'm Summer Mandel. I'm Government and Strategic Communications Director for TREC and also the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board, or TALCB. I'm excited to present to you the communications report today, and also to the Texas Realtors who are in the audience, who are here for Texas Realtors Winter Meeting. So welcome. Before reviewing these details on screen, since we've got some of y'all here, I wanted to give you a quick overview of what I and Communications Specialist Sierra Pizarro do here. So our mission is to create clear, useful, and trustworthy information for our license holders, prospective license holders, and the public in general. So we're here to help our colleagues in every way with their communications projects and challenges. And so we work with all sorts of departments, basically all departments in some way or another, which is really great. It helps us better understand what they do and how to translate that for everyone. So we want to make it easy for y'all as well to understand how to comply with rules and regulations and make it so that you're not wondering what TREC is doing or what advisory committees are talking about. It's not a secret. We want y'all engaged and we want you to know. So there's a snapshot in this report that gives you a feel for what we communicate and how we do that. And that's this over here on the left side under business entity registration communications. And this was what Executive Director Buck Holtz and Director Sample were talking about earlier. This new option for license holders was effective January 1st, and people were very, very excited about it. In fact, this passed in the legislature in May. Then we started hearing from folks right away, ready to do it, even though we needed to have this runway of time. So we worked on a few things just to get people ready, understanding what it was about, what just generally if they could register, what type of business entity they could register. As we got closer, we were able to add more nuance to that, what's different about the registration versus the business entity broker's license, why you might want one over the other. And you'll see that we did articles, we made some graphics like charts, we've got social media posts, and we also have a video featuring Commissioner Brown. Thank you again for doing that. And we couldn't have done this video without the technical assistance of the Austin Board of Realtors. They graciously shared with us their green room, their equipment, and their technical expertise to record Commissioner Brown when he was in town for a training. And with that, they gave us the video, and Sierra edited it to create what you see on screen right there. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the video statistics for his video, which are quite well. So because of this opportunity with ABOR, we're now working on our own green room here at TREC, so we can support more video work, and so Sierra can continue reaching all in a way that you seem to enjoy, along with all of our other things, such as our e-newsletters. So those remain a really strong avenue for reaching folks, and we just you can see the open rates are pretty strong. We recently sent TREC Advisor on Friday. Maybe that's why some of y'all are here today, because we wanted to hype this exciting meeting. And I can let you know that that was sent to more than 176,000 recipients. It has 63% open rate, which tracks with the others, and a 3% click-through rate. And what happens too is over time the open rate might tick up just a little bit as days go by. So since that was sent on Friday, we might see a little bit of improvement. And anyway, this concludes my communications report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will move to agenda item 14, that is public comments. I've got 4 people so far making public comments, and we have a 3-minute time limit. Will a trap door open, or will you just? Okay. Yeah, and we've done 5 of these Februaries, and I realize maybe next time we'll bring the dice up here. That way y'all can kind of see the audience. But it really needs to be here if there's any contested cases, so we'll work on that. But anyway, all right. First up, Avis Wukash. Oh, Joanne Justice is first up. And she is representing herself. And y'all might know Joanne used to sit up here, and so thank you for all your service.
Upon a time.
And I believe Texas Realtor of the Year 2023, is that correct?
Yes, thank you very
Okay.
much. It's really an honor to be here today, and before I say anything else, let me just tell you how much I respect each and every one of you for all that you do. You got a tough job, and we give you a hard time on it, but much appreciation for me on everything you do. My comments are regarding, and I know it's been referenced as recent law changes. I'm a little confused on that piece, and that may be my problem, but I'm 100% in favor, of course, of the change that was done that immediately terminates license that hasn't renewed. That was a pain in the neck for anyone who's a broker. I have over 2,000 people who I sponsor, and I love what's been done with that, so thank you. But the interpretation I'm looking at is the one that I hear referred to most often as the look-back law item. And first came to my attention that there was an issue shortly after the first of the year. In this particular case, we had an agent who had been affiliated with another company and was on a team, and apparently they let their team know that they were going to be leaving, and as soon as the team learned, the broker terminated them before they could do anything. I contacted TREC at that point, a couple of different occasions, got some different information. I don't know what Travis's last name is, but he's wonderful. Keep him. He was most helpful, taking me different places for information when I talked to him. I also contacted a couple of commissioners. Honestly, I really heard different things, folks, and so I was still confused. What I was asking for, because I have a number of delegated supervisors, was point me to a place where I can show them it's written down, that this is what it says, this is how it is. You can get it out to all your agents. We're all going to know. We're not going to be blindsided like this. Couldn't get there. Second occurrence happened when we had an active agent sponsored by our company, decided to change careers but wanted to keep an active license in a referral group. And I could give you these license numbers. The second one was 705-509, and the first one was 757677. I can give you this if needed afterwards. Decided to change, moved to a referral group, and boom, they couldn't do it. Because there was something in the look back. And then the last one, so I had three in less than 3 weeks, I think is what I told Scott when I called him. And it was 670809. This was one where the agent had made a decision to make a change of brokerage sponsorship, told their broker before the Christmas holidays or right at the holidays, and then was ready to come up first of the year, had clients in place, buyer rep agreements had been terminated and moved, the plans were to move it over, the people were ready to look, and we couldn't do it, and I'm talking because Scott applauded for a minute or two. So I can't see any benefit to the current interpretation that we're getting here. I think it seems to me like an interpretation, and I want to follow the rules, but I certainly hope you'll look into this a little bit further. Maybe we could look at it that if this happens like in the 90-day renewal period, maybe we want to get them then. But for the rest of this, I hope you'll review what seems to me like an unintended consequence and see if there's anything that can be done with it, because it's a problem. It really, or at least it is currently. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. And y'all, these public comments, just like the comments on proposed rules or whatever, everyone will be looked at. And we'll talk about some possible rule adoption and stuff later. We look at the public comments. Every public comment is not only, heard, but addressed at various different levels of the agency. Okay, Avis, are we now? Avis, representing herself, Avis Wukash, and
Avis Wukash, thank you for your time.
And she used to be here.
I used to be there. I'm glad I'm not. It's much more comfortable out there. Thank you. And Joanna and I have the same subject matter. I'm batting cleanup. That's what I said. If you don't do everything I think you should, then I'll talk. So I want to be sure you understand that what's happening in this short time frame appears to be forced education. And we've even seen people who are still in their SAE time being forced to take CE when their license went inactive one day and another broker picked them up the next day. And Scott and I have had some conversations about this, and Joanna and I both have no problem with people who've been inactive for a long, long time being forced to take CE before they're allowed to practice. Makes sense. But this is in a really short window that we're looking at when it's someone who says, I want to go to work for you, and I say, you're out of here, and I terminate your license, which is my favorite thing to do, actually. And I like that thing that it is, hi Abby, that you say terminate, not disengage or anything. But anyway, and then the next day they want to go to work for Chelsea and they can't. So that's what we're talking about. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Next up, Conrad Piggott, representing Academy of Real Estate. Good morning, Conrad.
Morning. Good morning, Commissioner, staff, Mr. Chairman, and guests. My name is Conrad Pickett, and I am humbled and honored to be here today. I am a third-generation licensee and the administrator of the Academy of Real Estate in El Paso, Texas. Yes, Mountain Daylight Time, that's why I was an hour early today. The Academy has been a small, local, successful business since 1975 and has obliged many industry changes similar to the proposed recommendation you'll see later before you today. Trusting our staff, departing our students, and loving my family with their support is the reason I'm here. I ask you to consider the discussion of requiring a Texas consumer who is seeking to obtain a real estate license be subject to the restriction of taking Principles 1 and 2 prior to any other real estate pre-licensing course. Just as importantly, this recommendation would exclude and not credit any prior courses taken to their pre-licensing education. In the spirit of being a qualified and ethical provider, as the mission statement says, and we endure to be, we are safeguarding the opportunity for all Texas consumers to fulfill their goal to obtain a real estate license in the most convenient and fair way, and to uphold the ability of having education opportunities available. ESAC compared the approved providers to universities and referenced courses that could not be taken without a prior introduction or completion of that course to get to the next, which I understand. However, we are not a university, and who am I to tell the citizens of Texas when they can start their pursuance of a Texas real estate license? Referencing the mission statement once more, the agency exists for facilitating economic growth and opportunity across Texas and having education opportunities available. By imposing a structure to the course sequence, we would be going against that statement. On the commitment to economic growth across Texas, someone could walk into the academy this Monday morning and start pursuing their studies today or later this evening, doing better for themselves and better for Texas. This requirement would force so many more online courses to be taken, which are advantageous and acceptable in their own right. Although I ask how many online providers are not based in Texas. Would this recommendation restrict the most delicate and in some cases preferred face-to-face personal touch in teaching and, more importantly, learning? After all, we are in real estate, which is a very personal trade that requires a personal touch. Our students at the academy, for the most part, have other commitments, whether it be full-time jobs, family, other studies. Nonetheless, when pupils begin to understand that the education is not available based off of their schedule, they will shy away from pursuing that education. Not everybody has an interest or means to go to a four-year college, but if we keep the education available, we are, quote, facilitating economic growth and opportunity across Texas. It's been mentioned that Principles 1 and 2 are the foundation of the core courses, and with that, I would like to mention that TREC's suggested length of time in Principles 1, that the provider spend 15 minutes on fiduciary duty. In law of agency, that suggested time is 40 minutes. Fiduciary, we are the fiduciary. If anything, Principles 1 and 2 is what brings everything together. TREC has come so far in the last few years in fulfilling the mission and customer service pledge. I trust that the commission will make the best decision. Let the consumer decide when they can start. Thank you.
Thank you, Conrad. Next up, Monty Hall, representing Pioneer School of Real Estate.
Thank you.
Good morning.
I get Monty Hall a lot, but it's Monty Wall.
Monty Wall, I'm sorry, and that's exactly what it says.
Back to the 90s.
I thought we were going to make a deal or something.
I'm going to try to make a deal. I get that a lot, so I'm not offended at all. I want to thank you for letting me have the opportunity to present a viewpoint to the commission. It is also regarding the prerequisite of Principles 1 and 2 for the other 4 courses. I believe that ESAC does a great job. I watch all the meetings, and they are very thorough in their discussions. So on this point, though, I do have a different opinion. We have some students that, first of all, I do believe that taking Principles 1 and 2 before the other 4 courses is the right path, and that is what we encourage. However, sometimes we will have a student that will not pass one of the Principles courses. At Pioneer School of Real Estate, we give them the choice. They can either immediately repeat the course that they have failed, or they can move on to the other 4 courses. Because we don't want them to get bogged down like a hamster on a wheel that just can't get out of Principles. When they go to the other 4 courses, those reinforce what they have already learned in Principles 1 and 2. It goes a little bit deeper, so when they go through those courses, they come back to a Principles 1 and 2 or 2 course, whichever one they had difficulty with, and they're able to pass that course. And for the majority of the time, once they've come back to Principles 1 and 2 and have passed, they go on to pass the licensing exam on the first attempt. That is what we are seeing. So I just don't want to see students get bogged down in principles 1 and 2. For a lot of people, if they're adult students, they're coming back into education after having not taken a test in a while. So they can have testing anxiety. The more they go through the courses, they get familiar with the content, and they're able to finish up their coursework. So I would ask you to consider not making principles 1 and 2 a prerequisite to the other 4 courses. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would like to add that this afternoon we will have a workshop. This is where the commissioners get together. They talk about things brought up from the advisory committee. And this is actually going to the workshop, okay, for the commission to dissect and talk about and see if it's something we move forward. The workshop is open to the public. There is no CE for the workshop, but it is open to the public. Okay. Thank you for the public comment. We are going to go to agenda item number 18. 15, 16, and 17 involve executive session. I want to try to get as much sausage made as possible before we go into executive. So agenda item number 18, discussion possible action of the new 22 TAC 537.66 standard contract form, track number 59-0. Purchaser, notice to purchaser on special taxing assessment district. Abby Lee, General Counsel, Deputy General Counsel will present this. Good morning.
Good morning. So just to provide a little bit of background for those of you that may not be familiar with the process, this is the portion of the meeting where we are adopting rules. So this rule was previously proposed at the November meeting. This rule and form went out for public comment. We're going to briefly go over those public comments, and then it is up to you if you do desire to adopt. As you mentioned, agenda item 18 is discussion and possible action to adopt new 22 TAC 537.66 standard contract form, TREC number 59-0, notice to purchaser of special taxing or assessment district. Now, you heard from the General Counsel earlier as to sort of why Broker Lawyer Committee created this form and a little bit about the changes. I'm just going to highlight those again. So again, this was created because of some recent legislation, which essentially changed a statutory notice where there was 3 into one single notice. And it covers water districts, which includes municipal utility districts. And so the Broker Lawyer Committee decided because there was some feedback that we were getting that some of the water districts were not having this form available as is required by statute, that perhaps the Broker Lawyer Committee could recommend a form that could be used as a backup in that situation for sellers. And so they drafted this form, and really there's not a whole lot to draft other than what's in the statute, because the statute provided that language verbatim. But they put together this form, put it out for public comment, and we got 37 public comments back. The details of those public comments are summarized in your materials, so I won't spend time to go through each and every one. But I think the vast majority of those comments were people who were concerned about the form being confusing or the process being confusing. And I think the committee, the Broker Lawyer Committee, heard those comments and really understood those. It is a confusing process. And the statute has some requirements that may be challenging or difficult. But I think ultimately the committee felt because this was a statutory notice where the language is coming from statute, their hands were tied a little bit. There wasn't really a lot to change. But they did make some changes, as the General Counsel pointed out, to areas that they could. So this form contains an introductory paragraph, and one of the things they did is they revised that to make it clear that really this form is to be used as a backup. Again, if the water districts have this form available, sellers do not need to use the commission's form. The other thing that was changed is there was a notice added that this does not apply to PIDs, public improvement districts. You heard that earlier. So those were some changes directly tied to some of the comments we got. A few other changes. maybe less substantive, but the committee added a checkbox to a paragraph just to make it a little more flexible based on the type of district that was filling out that form. So added a checkbox to paragraph 7, and then there was a change made to the disclaimer at the bottom of the form. So those are the changes that you would see from the proposed version to the adopted version that you have before you. And so the Broker Lawyer Committee did recommend that the commission adopt this form as modified. And so the staff recommendation is therefore to authorize staff on behalf of the commission to submit for adoption the amendments to new 22 TAC 537.66 and the form adopted by reference as presented to the Texas Register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for adoption.
Have a motion to adopt by Commissioner Brown. Second. Second by Commissioner Woodruff. Discussion. Commissioner Lerner.
Can licensees still use forms that are out there, like from the different associations? This form is completely confusing, and I feel like it's going to produce consumer harm for them to fill this out. So can they use a simplified version from the association?
Well, I can't speak to what an association's version might look like, but because the language of this version come directly from statute, and the statute actually, as General Counsel pointed out, has quotations around the language, there's not really any wiggle room. But if there are other forms out there that comply with the statute, license holders are free to provide those to their seller. This is a voluntary use form, so it can be used. It doesn't have to be used. I think, again, the idea of this form was as a backup in case the district themselves didn't have a form available.
At the end of the day, if this home is in a mud district, can they only disclose about the mud, or do they have to have that whole checklist of everything on there?
They would have to, the water district is supposed to provide all of the information that is in the commission's form. Right. Okay. So for a seller to comply with the law, they would have to provide all of that same information.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Other comments or questions? And you did say this is a voluntary form, not
Correct.
promulgated. Hopefully the website has it.
Yeah, so if you do decide to adopt, we will work as quickly as we can to get it finalized and posted for use by the public or for license holders to provide to a seller.
But as a listing broker, I cannot touch it as disclosure, but they need to check with the entity's website to see if they have this disclosure already. If not, this is voluntary.
Right, correct. That should be the first stop, but if it's not there, no one can find it, this is available.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you. We will now go to agenda item 19.
It's me again. Okay, so agenda item 19 is discussion and possible action to propose review of 22 TAC chapters 531, Canons of Professional Ethics and Conduct, 533, Practice and Procedure, 534, General Administration, and 541, Rules Relating to the Provisions of the Texas Occupations Code, Chapter 53. So this is rule review, and for those of you newer to the commission and to those in our audience, rule review is something that every state agency has to go through every 4 years. It's a requirement of the government code. And some of you who aren't new may be thinking, my gosh, I think we just did this a couple years ago. It hasn't been 4 years. Why are we looking at this again? So if you recall, one of the things we talked about when we did that last rule review is that we wanted to transition from actually requiring or doing the review once every 4 years to a rolling basis. And this is actually something that we discovered is, I think, more common among state agencies. And it's also something that I think is ultimately better for the public, because you'll remember, some of you, that when we do rule review, it can be a lot of rules. It's a lot to go through. And so the thought here was, well, we can, break it up over for a 4-year period, look at less chapters each year, and really have some time to go through everything. The other thing to remind you is because we did do such a heavy lift a couple years ago, probably not a lot in the way of non-substantive changes. So the idea here is to open it up, hear what members of the public have to say, look at those comments, and then really look at it from there. So again, this is pursuant to Section 2001.039 of the Government Code, and the Commission rules found within these chapters will be reviewed and considered for readoption, revision, or appeal. The review will include whether the reasons for initially adopting these rules continue to exist. So the staff recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of the Commission to submit the review of 22 TAC Chapters 531, 533, and 534, and 541 as presented, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for proposal to the Texas Register for publication and public comment.
Have a staff recommendation. We'll entertain a motion. Motion made by Commissioner Renee Harvey-Lowe, seconded by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? Now, this will be posted on the register for a comment period, so the people here can look at those, make any comments prior to adoption in May, correct?
So we would accept any comments once we open it up. We'll take a look at those comments. Based on those comments, we may make proposed changes to rules. That would be the next step in May. Then it's just like any other rule process: proposal in May, public comment, and then potential adoption in August. Yeah.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now moving to agenda item 15, and I am getting, is he here? You know, the general counsel used to sit by me. Sometimes I miss that. Okay, agenda item 15. Is a consideration and possible action regarding proposal for decision in the matter of SOA docket 32923185513, TREC versus Kenneth L. Hayes. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the respondent? Seeing no one here to speak on behalf of the respondent, I will ask Mr. Malloy to come and present. And I will set your time limit at 5 minutes.
All right. Good morning again, Chair, Commissioners. Before I move into this case, just to give a little detail, this is a denial of a reinstatement for a broker application, and Mr. Hayes did have the burden of proof. A reinstatement occurs when someone's been expired for more than 6 months but less than 2 years. Also, another thing to note in this is a little bit different is when they go through the renewal process, when they go through the reinstatement process, we look at their full background. Unlike when you just regularly renew, there's only a limited review of their background. So they're basically treated like a new applicant that's coming in. They need to disclose everything, even if they had previously disclosed it to us before. Turning to his background, which was the basis of our denial, Mr. Hayes had a sales agent license from August 2010 to October of 2012, and then he had a broker's license from October 12 to October 2020 when he let that expire. So during his licensure period, in February of 2019, he received a final order for a 3-year probated suspension and a $1,000 administrative penalty for his failure to disclose his felony within 30 days. And that felony was a third-degree felony assault against family or household member by impeding normal breathing and circulation. He failed to pay that administrative penalty by the deadline of the order, which was 30 days after that became effective. Additionally, in September of 2019, he received another final order placing a reprimand on his license and suspending his broker license until he would pay. And that was based upon a hot check that he wrote part of his renewal and failed to pay it, and there was also a different administrative penalty that was afforded in that case as well. He allowed his license, like I said, to expire. He did not pay the penalties. He moved to Florida and got a sales agent license in Florida. In October 2022, he came back and paid the outstanding balances he had for the final orders in the hot check related issue. In part of his renewal that he submitted shortly after that, he did disclose his background, with the exception that he did not disclose a misdemeanor battery conviction. We notified him of the denial and the basis of that, and which the crutch of that is his past disciplinary history and his failure to disclose and be honest on his application that he submitted to us as part of his reinstatement. All three of the criminal offenses that were brought to the SOA judge are directly related to the brokerage activity. So in staff's opinion, like I said earlier, he provided false and misleading information as part of his application. Additionally, we took in consideration his past discipline with us and his failure to comply with the orders that were weighted against him. The ALJ was not convinced, felt that Mr. Hayes met his burden of proof for his honesty, trustworthiness, and integrity to hold a broker's license. Staff filed exceptions. The ALJ kept to their original determination on the PFD. We still feel we have serious concerns about Mr. Hayes in general in regards to his honesty, trustworthiness, and integrity. I'll point to, when a person is licensed, there's an expectation they're going to comply with the law and commission rules. He has a history that he has not done so. So we don't feel it's appropriate to give him a broker's license. Obviously, there's expectations probably put higher for brokers due to their education, experience, and they're also their ability to sponsor agents. And in this case, if Mr. Hayes can't comply with our laws in general, then I have serious concerns about his ability to manage or possibly sponsor sales agents that have less experience than he has. Staff recommends amending the findings of facts and conclusions of law to deny this application. However, if this body feels the denial is not appropriate, I would recommend at the very least probationary license and put some terms and conditions in that probation for him not to sponsor any agents during his probationary period. The staff attorney that handled this matter is available for questions.
Okay, any questions? I've got a couple on the time frame. So he was given a suspended license until the $1,000 fine was paid, or the $1,000 administrative penalty was paid. And then the suspended license actually expired in October of 20, correct? October 30th of 20?
So in February, that was his first final order. It was February 2019, I'm sorry. That dealt with his criminal felony. So he was put on a probationary suspension for his broker's license and did the $1,000 fine because he didn't notify us within 30 days. Then when he did his renewal, he wrote us a hot check. We have collection procedures for that. He failed to, pay us back within a timely basis. So it's actually a violation of the License Act to submit a hot check to the commission. So we proceeded on that. He never answered. And so that's what we have procedurally for those situations is someone, in this situation, he wrote a hot check. He didn't cooperate with us. So a provision in that notice of alleged violation is you're suspended until you pay us the fee to, for the renewal. So that's when he was actually suspended, and then it just expired after that.
Okay, I guess my question is, and might have to get legal counsel, the license shows to be expired October 30th of 2020. He had reapplied for a license in September of 19, where he did not, I believe it was July 19, I'm sorry, sometime in 19. But he gave a check that was not good. My question is, if we see giving him a license back, does he qualify for a broker's license? Has he had, for the last 5 years, of active since it expired in October of 20. Is he even qualified for a broker's license? And that's my question that I didn't see answered in here. Because we've had situations where brokers have got out of the business, medical, whatever, and then they come back and they're now a salesperson because of the 4 out of 5 years. So I guess that's my question. If we even go that route, if it's even
I think he probably did because it was transferred over to our agent or our division, and that would be something that licensing would look up front when he submitted the reinstatement.
Okay.
But Denise may have another opinion on that.
I can stand up. No, I was just going to clarify, it's from the application date, so when we have to pause it and refer it to enforcement, that kind of stops the clock on the application.
Okay.
So it was around October 2022 when he submitted the application.
We're also looking at a 2-year look back there, right?
Yes, the active time requirement on an initial application is 4 out of the last 5, and on a reinstatement, it's 2 years.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. We were about to go into executive session. Executive session is to discuss pending litigation or obtain advice of legal counsel on agenda items pursuant to the Texas Government Code 551.071 and personal matters relating to the performance and review of executive director pursuant to the Government Code 551.074. I am going to adjourn the meeting at 10:40. I think it will be an executive session. I'm going to say we'll be back at 12 noon. Is that too much time, about right? Okay. So we're adjourned till 12 noon. There is a little cafeteria over here. After we get back, we will discuss the other agenda items that have to follow executive. All right? Oh, what'd I miss?
There's also, this is just for everyone here if you're hungry, there's also another
Call this meeting back into order at 12:15 p.m. I will apologize for running longer. You never really know how long an executive session is going to go, and you certainly don't want to lessen the input and the evaluation process just to meet a time deadline. Okay, we will go back to agenda item 15. Consideration and possible action regarding proposal for decision in the matter of SOA docket 32923185513 REC TREC versus Kenneth L. Hayes. Anybody here to speak for the respondent, Kenneth Hayes? Seeing none, Michael Malloy, if you would, if we have any questions for Mr. Malloy. Discussion, questions? I guess one of the questions I have, the offense of the assault happened in 2016. His original, 2016. Yeah, his license, he was granted a probationary license on that to begin with, correct? Is that?
He was put on probated suspension.
Probated suspension for that in 16. The license was granted in 10. And then ultimately, he did not lose that license because of anything except not paying there was not another repeat of offense from the 2016 assault, correct?
There was a hot check.
Okay.
That was a separate violation in a separate case.
All right. Other questions for Mr. Malloy? Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion. That would be a motion.
I was looking at that, sorry. I move to grant Mr. Hayes' application for reinstatement of his broker's license. 2, amend the PFD to reflect all the ALJ's improper application of applicable law with regard to Mr. Hayes' failure to disclose his criminal history and his violation of the Commission's orders regarding payment of administrative penalty, and amend the PFD to correct a technical error made by the ALJ with regard to his Florida real estate license.
Okay, so we have a motion to.
Second.
and it's by Commissioner Lerner, second by Commissioner Woodruff. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, so that would mean that he would not get any probationary status. It's just a clean.
It is an active broker's license with no restrictions is what the motion calls for. Other discussion? Was there?
Mr. Chairman, I would argue that there needs to be some level of probation here. The respondent has proven time and again that neither the rules of society nor the rules of this commission mean much to him. And so I have a hard time just in good conscience creating a license without some strings attached to it.
Okay. Other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I agree.
Agree with Commissioner Brown? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I also agree that granting the license without any probationary status is probably not the best thing to do here because of his disregard to disclose prior offenses and the lack of just complying with the previous order just shows that he's not able to keep his word. And so I'm kind of having a hard time just granting him a license without any probationary conditions.
Any other discussion? Your light's on.
It is. I was just going to make a motion to amend. If that's
okay.
Suitable here.
All right. Now Robert needs to show up. Where's
Easier to finish one before you start.
Take the vote.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the you want to read it one more time, please?
I move to grant Mr. Hayes' application for reinstatement of his broker's license. Amend the PFD to reflect the ALJ's improper application of applicable law in regard to Mr. Hayes' failure to disclose his criminal history and his violation of the Commission's orders regarding payment of administrative penalties, and amend the PFD to correct a technical error made by the ALJ with regard to his Florida real estate license.
All right. All in favor? I need a hand vote, please. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. Any abstaining? Motion does not pass. Would entertain another motion.
Mr. Chairman, based on Mr. Hayes' criminal history, including an analysis of the mitigating factors under Chapter 53, Occupations Code, his failure to disclose such history as required, and his failure to comply with 2 commission orders, I move to grant his application for reinstatement on a probationary period basis for a period of 4 years, subject to the terms and conditions to be outlined in the order, including prohibiting the respondent from acting as a designated broker for a licensed business entity and prohibiting the respondent from acting as a sponsoring broker for any sales agents for a period of the first 2 years of the probation. Secondly, we amend the PFD reflect the ALJ's improper application of the applicable law with regard to Mr. Hayes' failure to disclose his criminal history and his violation of the Commission's orders regarding payment of administrative penalties, and amend the PFD to correct technical error made by the ALJ with regard to his Florida real estate license.
We have a motion, Commissioner Pena, second by Commissioner Brown. Discussion. Commissioner Lerner.
I personally don't see anything in this whole case that talks about brokerage activity, so I don't really understand why he's not being permitted to sponsor agents or have agents. I also recognize he's already had a probationary license. I don't understand why we're going back to that. That wasn't the point of this case. This was 2016. We're licensing people that's done stuff last year. So I don't understand why we're not being consistent in our discipline.
Other comments, discussion? I tend to agree with Commissioner Lerner with as far as going back to 16, he completed that, with the one exception of that Mr. Malloy mentioned earlier, and that was not paying. So, yeah. Any other discussion? All right. All in favor of the motion granting a probationary lot, you want to read the motion again? Do we need to read the motion again? No.
No, it's in
Are we good with the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, raise hand. Hand raised, hand raised. Okay, opposed? All right, motion carries. And for the people in the audience, all this material is on the website, and the only information we have is what is in the material. There's no other, whether you know something or not, or you hear something, the only thing we have to make any decisions on is what is printed in that material from the ALJ through the PFD, period. And sometimes it might not be, the rest of the story, but that's what we have to base any decision on. All right? Okay. Let's go to agenda item number 17, report regarding the denial of recovery fund. We started this a couple years ago. When someone gets money from the recovery fund, we know about it and we vote on it, we talk about it. When there's the denial, it's usually handled by staff. But we think when there's a denial, it probably needs to come toward the public too. That way they don't think we're just in some back room hitting denied on paper and sending it out. So kind of more of a transparency issue. And General Counsel Abby Lee is going to talk to us about a recovery fund denial, Chantel Wilson versus Sharice Downey, PhD.
Correct. So good afternoon. So agenda item 17 is the report, as the chair said, regarding the denial of recovery fund claim RF 24001, Chantel Wilson versus Sharice Downey, PhD. And as the chair pointed out, we report these due to commission policy, which says we provide a summary of any denials that we make at the commission's quarterly meetings. So this claim was denied because the only damages sought were actually tied to a real estate investment scheme, which in our statute is actually carved out of the definition of real estate brokerage. That's one of the elements or requirements to be eligible for a claim, that it actually has to involve real estate brokerage activity. And so per statute, that's why it was denied. So you all received a copy of the denial letter under separate cover. And again, this doesn't require any action, but I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for those that don't remember principles 1 or 2, the recovery fund, you actually have to have a judgment in order to recover money that can't be paid. You just can't, apply for money and be paid for damages. There has to be a judgment. And our staff does an extremely good job making sure that recovery money is taken care of and given out with the correct reasons and amounts. So, and by the way, the recovery fund amounts were amended in the last legislation, increasing it from $100,000 per 50,000 to 100,000 per agent, 100,000 to 250,000 per transaction. Is that correct? We'll flip them. Okay, very good. I'm glad I passed the test. I don't have to answer that question again. All right, so anyway. All right, we will go to agenda item number 20, discussion and possible action regarding annual performance review and salary of TREC Executive Director. All right. Okay, every year in February, we evaluate the Executive Director, and we bring it out in front of everybody from Texas Realtors that's visiting us. And the last 2 years, it's been on Valentine's Day, which is, I always thought, a funny time to evaluate Executive Director. The way the process works is the 9 commissioners on the commission side and the 9 board members on the appraisal side, they get a questionnaire and they fill it out. They submit it to our general counsel, Vanessa Burgess. There's also a sampling, I think 20, 15?
Direct reports.
Yeah.
And sampling of someone from each division.
Right, direct reports and sampling from each division as far as staff. They also complete an evaluation. We get it together, we dissect the executive, and we just did that in executive. Overall, I think the general consensus is Chelsea's doing a great job. I think the one thing that Chelsea has a knack for doing is putting the right people in the right seat on the bus. Some of y'all might remember the book Good to Great, and that's very, very important to have the people there. I think from the staff reports you saw earlier, you saw that she does a great job putting people in the right position. Nobody walks on water. We maybe want a little bit more communications on some things maybe going on. Does a real estate agent always want more communications? Absolutely. But I think overall, you've done a great job, and I will open it up for other comments as far as evaluation. Commissioner Brown.
Mr. Chairman, based on evaluation, I would motion that we increase Director Buckholz's compensation 5% effective March 1st.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to increase salary 5% effective March 1st, made by Commissioner Brown, second by Commissioner Woodruff. Any discussion?
I just want to add to your comments, Commissioner Kestner, or Chair Kestner, that, I find you to be very able leader of your team, as evidenced by, the continuing improvements and performance of, the various departments and metrics, that we've heard about in the reports today, but also, I think you have a vision that is very positive for the commission. And of course, we can always do more. So we've got big plans for doing more over the years, and I think you're the right person to lead us.
Commissioner Russell.
Well, considering that we are a very small commission, she has 2 boards of directors to answer to, and that's pretty hefty. And she seems to handle, at least I know ours very well, and I don't hear any complaints from the inspectors too. So it's quite a job for a small group that she shepherds.
Commissioner Pena.
Yes, I always like to look at leaders and see the people that are around them, and from what I've seen, you've got a good team of directors around you that got it together, right? And so I think that's a reflection of your leadership. I think you have a really great team, and thank you for that, and keep going.
Okay, I will just add, last week or 2 weeks ago, the executive committee from TREC, along with the executive committee from the appraisal board, also came together, and I'll be glad to report their evaluations were outstanding also, and their executive committee also had nothing but the highest praise for what you do. In full disclosure, we are probably going to redo some of the evaluation process or some stuff. Question there as far as self-development, what she does, throughout the year to not only learn more about the real estate industry, but agency in general. And we talk several days a week, and so I kind of know that, and some of the other commissioners and board members don't necessarily know that. So we're going to start kind of track what she does through the entire year. That way, when you get the evaluation, what has she done to improve self-development, you'll have some documentation there. I'll certainly speak in favor of the motion. Any other discussion? Should we vote on it before we let her give her evaluation? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion, any abstaining, motion carries. Chelsea, I'll be glad to hear any feedback from you. I'm sorry, Executive Director Buckholz, I'll be glad to hear any feedback from you.
I prefer Chelsea. No, I'm grateful. Thank you for your confidence. I look forward to continued improvement. I am extremely thankful for feedback about how I can better serve this body. And I would just say, in general, your job is as good as your boss, and I have 9 good ones on this commission and 9 additional ones on the appraisal board. Thank you.
Okay, my agenda is kind of a mess. I think we're at agenda item 21 and nothing has been left out. Is that correct? Okay. Discussion and possible action regarding future agenda items for anything on the agenda. Yeah, that'll be next, but anything on the agenda? All right, we will now talk about future meetings, and the future meeting is in the Dallas area. And I don't have that exact date. I should. It's in May 20th, and that is at the
Marriott Dallas Las Colinas. Did I say that in the right order? Okay.
Okay, and that is May 20th, and again, we're doing the large metroplexes, Houston last year, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio. That way we can get some of our licensees and some of the public members in here to learn more about TREC, and I think that's an awesome job to get that done. Do what? Rio Grande Valley, Van Horn, Sierra Blanca area is probably coming up, anyway, we are about to adjourn. We have a workshop scheduled for 1 o'clock, or as soon as this is over. The workshop will be upstairs. Public is welcome. It will be at 1. It will be at 1 o'clock. Okay, 1 o'clock. The workshop is upstairs. It is open to the public. You're welcome to drop in and listen to the workshop. You will not get CE. Again, I want to thank y'all for attending. I want to thank the staff of this agency that does an absolutely outstanding job. And I want to thank the commissioners. And I am saying we are adjourned at 12:34 p.m. Thank y'all.